15th day of the month of Mar Cheshvan, and we are Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach learning Daf Nun. Where are we up to? Over here? There we go. We are Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach continuing the bottom of Nun Hey Amud Beis and going on to Daf Nun Vav Amud Aleph. Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach. Let's just send out the link over here, and we will be good to go. There we go. Okay. We left off at the Mishnah, the bottom of Nun Hey Amud Beis, and the Mishnah tells us as follows. 4 lines from the bottom of Nun Hey Amud Beis. Last word on the line, but the Mishnah tells us as follows. Shisha dvarim asu anshe Yericho. There were 6 things that the people of Yericho did. Al shloisha michu biyadam. For 3 of them, the Chachamim were upset with them. They protested. Al shloisha lo michu biyadam, and 3 of them they did not protest. Ve'elohem shelo michu biyadam. What are the 3 things that they didn't protest? I mean, all 6 of these things we'll see later in the Gemara seem to be somewhat inappropriate. And 3 of them they made a noise about, and 3 of them they did not. What are the 3 things that they did not make a noise about? The first is marchivin dekalim kol hayom, and this is the relationship to everything that we've been talking about. Is they would graft day palm trees, kol hayom, the whole of the 14th of Nisan. Apparently, this was a good season to do so, and we'll discuss exactly what that grafting process looks like. And they bundled up the Shema. The Gemara is going to explain what that means. And they would harvest and stack their grain before the Korban Omer was brought. Says the Gemara, and what are the 3 things that they did protest to them doing? Matirim gamzios shel hekdesh. They allowed the gamzios of hekdesh. What are the gamzios? So those are branches of hekdesh. Rashi explains after they had cut down trees, so the additional wood that grew after the tree was cut, they would continue to grow a little bit, so that they cut off and they used themselves. They were matted to use them. And they would eat fruit that fell off the tree on Shabbos. And they portioned off a part of their vegetable patches as peah. The Chachamim protested all of these things. It's interesting to point out that 2 of these things were things that were asur, and the Chachamim said you should hold that it's asur. And the 3rd one, is what's the reason that they protested? Because it was mutter and ganzen. Rashi says, "Who potter min hapeah." It's potter, and the Chacham said, "No, you don't do things that you're not obligated to. That's also important." Which is important within the context of the whole parak of minhagim that are not necessarily accurate. Says the Gemara 1 line down from the top of the page, Nun Vav. It's a chunky Amud with some agaritas as well. Says the Gemara as follows: Tan Rabban, the Rabban told in the Brayso, Shisha Dvarim Asa Chizkiah HaMelech. There were the 6 things that Chizkiah HaMelech did, meaning this is the theme, continuing from what we said about the Anshe Yericho. The Brayso tells us about Chizkiah HaMelech. Al Shloisha Hodelai, for 3 of those things, they agreed with him. Al Shloisha Loi Hodelai, and 3 of the things that he did, they did not agree to him. What are the things that they agreed to him? So Gira Atzmas Aviv Almita Shel Chavalim. He dragged the bones of his father on a bed of ropes. And they agreed to him about that. Yeah, his father Achaz was a terribly corrupt and wicked king. Rashi says Mishum Kapara. And he did this as a kapara for his father. V'loi kivrei b'chavod, and he didn't honor him with burial. B'darg shemita na'eh mipnei kiddush Hashem she's gana al rishai ve'yivasrui hal ha'rishayim. That this was a kapara for his father. That the denigration that he showed his father in his father's death should atone for him by ensuring that people did not follow in his ways, by saying that this is something that we don't like. So it wasn't just that he was showing a lack of covet to his father. He did so for the sake of his father. Says the Brisa, Kites Nachash and Choshes. He ground up the Nachash and Choshes, the copper snake that Moshe Rabbeinu made in the Midbar. He ground it up for Hodulai, and they agreed to him. Rashi says, because there were people that started worshipping it. And Gana Sefer Rufus, and he hid the Sefer Rufus, that was the Sefer Rufus of Shlomo Melech, that people would open up and be able to solve all of their medical problems. Then they didn't daven to Hashem, and they didn't do tshuva for the chataim that brought the illnesses for Hodula, and they agreed to him that all three of these things were good ideas to do. But there were three things that the Chacham did not agree to him. They are Kitzes Dalta Shel Heichal v'Shigron LeMelech Asher. He cut off the doors of the Heichal, and he sent them to the king of Asher. This bribe, this take a look at Malachim Beis in the 18th parak, and the Psukim describe it. The Chacham said it was not a good idea. So also made Gichan Elyon, and he sealed off the waters of the Gichan, which is in Divrei Yomim. They didn't agree to him with that. And Iber Nisan ben Nisan, and he made an Iber year. He made the year into a leap year already in the month of Nisan. The halacha is that you can make a leap year all the way until the end of Adar. You can say this was Adar Rishon, and then we'll have it in Adar Sheni. You can do that all the way until the end of Adar. But once it is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, you can no longer do that. And Rashi here says what exactly happens is once it was already Nisan, it was already declared as Rosh Chodesh Nisan. It's like no. In fact, this is going to be an Adar Sheni. Chacham did not agree to him with that. Back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah told us that the Anshe Yericha were marchivim dekalim kol hayom, that they grafted date palms the whole day. So Heichi Abdi, what exactly was this process? Amar Rav Yehuda, says Rav Yehuda, Maise Asa Dedara. They brought myrtles, hadassim, v'shichra de dafna, and juice of I've got here a translation that's a bay fruit. That's what exactly is this? Is this stuff? That's the fruit of a laurel tree or bay fruit. That's I'm not entirely sure what either of those two things are, but you feel free to Google that. Vikimcha desari, and barley flour. And Dirami b'mana delay chalfi alei arabim yom, and it was put into a clay pot that was fresh, that was less than 40 days old. And they boiled the whole thing together. And they poured it into the heart of the date palm, meaning they poured it into the core of the date palm. And anything that is within 4 amas of this date palm, any other date palms, if you didn't also do this process to that date palm, it would wither up immediately, because it would be outcompeted by this juiced up palm tree. Meaning, this would be such a great shtick for the palm tree that it would have so much kach, it would outcompete all the other palm trees. So that's what it means, that they were marchivin kala yom kula, that they did this the whole day, because otherwise you would end up with a couple of really strong ones and everything else would die. Rav Achabri, the son of Rav, says, no, that wasn't it wasn't this story, because that wasn't the mission that describes this as grafting. That wasn't grafting. What was the grafting that they did? Manchi kufra dichra lenukvasa. They would take a male branch of a palm tree and graft it onto a female palm tree, and that way it would pollinate. Meaning that way it would grow fruit. V'karchin es hashma, and they bundled up the shema. What does bundling up the shema mean? What exactly does this mean? Amar Rav Yehuda, says Rav Yehuda, it meant it said the first pasuk of Shema, and they did not pause. They didn't pause. Now, there's 2 ways of learning this. The way that Rashi says is they were not mafsik before carrying on. Tosa says that they read it without pausing between the words. It says Ben Shema Yisrael La Shem. Demashma the Omer La Shem Sheyishma Yisrael V'Yanim. That the way that they ran the sentence on, it sounded like they were saying Shema Yisrael, to Hashem, meaning the thing that should be listening, the deity, the entity that should be listening to them is called Yisrael, that Yisrael should hear. And therefore, that's called Karchan Sashma. It's reading it inappropriately. Rava Amar Rava says, Mafsikin Hayu. No, they did pause. Ela Shahayu Omrim Hayam Al Levavecha. What was the problem? But they said it as a run-on sentence, meaning in Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, they paused and they went on to V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha, but they continued running it on saying Hayam Al Levavecha, but Hayam Al Levavecha. They made the pause before the word Hayom and the end of the sentence with Alavavecha, which sounds like, says the Gemara to Mashma, sounds like Hayom Alavavecha v'lo machar Alavavecha. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Hashem Anachim Mitzavcha Hayom. I'm commanding this matter to you today, Alavavecha, on your heart. And the way that they read it was Hayom Alavavecha, today on your heart, v'lo machar Alavavecha, and tomorrow you don't have to worry about being on your heart. And that is called Karchin Alashma. That they bundled up the Shema, and that was inappropriate. The Chachamim didn't yell at them about that. Tana Rabban, the Brisa says as follows: Kate said, "How you karchin es Shema?" When, how did they bundle up the Shema? Only they said, "Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad," and this is another interpretation. They didn't pause. That we saw before. That is Rabbi Meir's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Mafsikin hayu." They did pause. They missed the line of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Le'olamod. They didn't say that line. In my time, it says the Gemara. This is an important question. Why do we say that? Because it's not in the Torah. That's not a pasuk. As Rabbi Shimon Lakish told us, the Rabbi Shimon Lakish says, Rabbi Shimon Lakish Vayikra Yaakov el Banav Vayomer Ha'asfu V'Agid Lachem. Yaakov calls his children and he says, "Gather, and I will tell you." Because Yaakov legalas lebanav Kates, he wanted to reveal the end to Kates Yamin, the end of days to his sons. V'nistalkem mimenu Shechina, and the Shechina departed from him, it left him. Amar, he said, "Shema chas v'shalom yesh b'mitasi psul." Maybe I have some issues. Maybe one of you guys is not a monotheist. Maybe you're not in the same parsha, and that's why the Shechina has left me. Avram sheyas mimenu Yishmael, like Avram, Yishmael came from him. Ve'avi Yitzchak sheyas mimenu Esav, and my father Yitzchak, he had a son Esav. Amar Ibanav, his children said to him, "Shema Yisrael, listen Yisrael," meaning Tata Yaakov. Yaakov is Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, listen Yisrael. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. We're all monotheists here. We all believe in one God. Amru, they said, "Kashem she'ein belibcha ela echad," just like in your heart there is only one God. Kach ein belibenu ela echad. So too in our heart there is only one God. But Isha Pasach Yaakov Avinu v'Amar. At that moment, Yaakov Avinu opened and said, "Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Le'olamod," that blessed is the name of Hashem's kingdom forever and ever. This drasha, this Agarata of Rabbi Shimon Lakish is quoted by the Rambam, and characteristically quoted by the Rambam in Hilchos Kriyas Shema, that this is the reason that we say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Le'olamod. Amar Rabbanan, the Rabbanan said, "Hey Chinavet." So what should we do? What should we do? Namru. So should we said Loi Amar Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say it, meaning it's not in the Torah. Loi Namru. Should we not say it? Amar Yaakov, but Yaakov did say it. So this is machlokes between Yaakov and Moshe. Right, what are we going to do? So they instituted that it should be said quietly, out of covet for Moshe Rabbeinu, because Moshe Rabbeinu did not say it in the Torah, but Yaakov did. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak said, Amar Debei Rabbi Ami. They said in the Beis Medrash of Rabbi Ami, Mashal Bas Melech She'ericha Tziki Kedera. This is a mashal of a princess that smelt the tziki gedera is like the burnt ends at the bottom of the pot, like the crispy stuff at the bottom. Im Tamar, if she says, "I want it, give me the crispy parts at the end," yesh legnai. You can't. She's a princess. You can't like ask for chips at the meal. Lo Samar, but if she doesn't say she wants it, yesh latzar. She'll be in pain. So so her servants came and they slipped it to her, meaning they put it on the plate, meaning it's not betamt for the princess to say it out loud, but it's a worthwhile thing to have. And there's, of course, a lot to say about this particular mashal of Chazal. But says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Abahu tells us, originally the Chacham said that they should say it out loud, because of the heretics. what the heretics are going to say, what are you guys whispering? What are you whispering under your breath? And they're going to think all sorts of weird things about from Jews, that after you say Shema, what else are you saying here? Lich'ora, the concern is that it gives license for people to say other heretical things after they say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. We all believe in monotheism. Then a person could whisper whatever they want. But in Naharda, that so far there are no heretics. Amru la b'chashai. We go back to saying it quietly because that is that's the better thing to say. But Rabbi Abba says that where he lives, they said it b'kol ram because of the heretics. Tana Rabbanan. The Brisa teaches us as follows: Shisha dvarim asu anshe Richa. There were 6 things that were done by the people of Richa. Shloisha b'ritzayin chachamim, shloisha b'ritzayin chachamim. 3 of them were with the will of the chachamim, the approval of the chachamim, and 3 of them were against the will of the chachamim. Ve'el b'ratzon chachamim. These are the things that with the chachamim they did with consent. These, what we just quoted in the Mishnah, exactly the same thing. What's the difference? Is that in the Mishnah it said, and here it says, the Mishnah says that they didn't protest, and here it says that it was with the will of the Chachamim. We're going to see how that rolls out. These are the things that were not with the will of the Chachamim. That they stacked the grain before the Omer, and they would make breaches, holes in the fences of their gardens and their orchards, to give fallen fruit to the poor people if there was a famine. And this all took place b'Shabbos of Yom Tov. They did the Shabbos in Yom Tov, meaning they the fallen fruit that they would allow the poor people to come and eat. Now, we had it slightly differently in the Mishnah. We had that they would eat this, but the Brisa tells us it didn't mean that they would go and eat it, but that they would allow poor people to come and get it. And they permitted the gamzias of hektish, the extra growths of the hektish trees. Shel Charv Shel Shikma, specifically of the carob and sycamore trees. Divrei Meir, this is the opinion of Meir. Amar Rabbi Yehuda said to him, if it was with the will, with the consent of the Chachamim, you call Adam Eisim, then everybody's going to go ahead and do that. Meaning, if the Chachamim said it's mutter, if it was B'Ritzayin Chachamim, then everybody's going to go and copy them. Ela elu ve'elu sheloi B'Ritzayin Chachamim. No, the Chachamim did not say that it was a good idea. They disagreed. 3 of them they yelled at them about, they protested, and 3 of them they did not protest. What are the things that they didn't protest? That was that they would graft their palm trees, and they bundled up the shema, and they stacked the grain before they harvested and stacked grain before the omer. What did they protest? Matirin gamzia shel hektish, that they allowed the extra growths of hektish wood, shel charv shel shikma, of those 2 trees. Upartzim paratzos being a 7 partzim, lachil neshel anim b'shavas v'yom tovim b'shnei batzaris, and they allowed the poor people to eat from the fallen fruit during years of famine on Shabbos and Yom Tov. V'noistim pe'al yerek, and that they made a payer for the yerek, that they made a portion of the field for the yerakos, for their vegetation. And the Chacham disagreed with them on those things. And we will continue with the question that the Gemara asks for Rabbi Yehuda, because we have noted that there are some slight differences in the lists between the Mishnah and the Brisa, between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, and to be continued. Everybody should have a beautiful day.